Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Nabiyyina Muhammadi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'du, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to our Ayyuh al-Walad series, which has been running now for over 2 weeks. Alhamdulillah. We're on the 12th and the 13th council. Again, I'm taking opportunity to do a couple. I had chance today to look a little bit forward, and there's going to be some councils which we may have to do over 2 days, 3 days, because they're quite long. So that's the reason why I'm taking opportunity to sneak in a couple every now and then. Similarly, we have the fiqh half hour on the Wednesdays. And because of the fiqh half hour on Wednesdays, we also don't have the, we have to make kind of catch up on that time as well. So hopefully somewhere Usman is sending these links because, yes, it's gone live. So that's good. So that he can share those around, inshallah. And then everybody will get access. Yep, he's sharing them as I speak. Alhamdulillah. Good, he's on it, mashallah. Doesn't matter where he is, he's on task. Alhamdulillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ayyuh al-Walad. Ruya fi wasaya Luqman al-Hakim libnihi annahu qal. Now we know that, this, when I first came across this text, Ayyuh al-Walad, it reminded me straight away of Luqman alayhi salam, or Luqman radiallahu anhu's advice he gave to his son. Because he gave some counseling advice, he gave some nasiha to his son as well. And it takes us to the 12th council before Imam Ghazali picks a particular piece of advice that Luqman alayhi salam or Luqman radiallahu anhu gave to his son. So he says, it has been narrated from the advice of which Luqman alayhi salam gave to his son, and that was annahu qal, in which he said, Ya bunayya, oh my dear child, oh my dear son, la yakunanna diku akyasa mink. Don't let the cockerel be smarter than you. Okay, alhamdulillah. Excellent, Usman. I know, mashallah, you're on it. Alhamdulillah. Du'as, yeah? Inshallah, make sure you remember us in your du'as. La yakunanna diku akyasa mink. Don't let the cockerel be smarter than you. Now, if you remember yesterday's council, we found that he mentioned, Imam Ghazali mentioned the cockerel being a voice which Allah SWT likes. The reason being is, he mentioned Sawtu Diq, that there are 3 aswad, 3 sounds which are very dear. One is the reciter, one is the person, the reciter during the night, one is the person making istighfar around suhoor time, and the first one is a Sawtu Diq, at the time of ashar, yani the sound of the cockerel crowing when it is just before dawn, pre-dawn. So this is why, Luqman it also indicates towards this. He says, La yakunanna diq akyasa mink. Don't let the cockerel be akyasa mink, smarter than you. Yunadi bil ashar wa anta na'imun. It is calling at the time of suhoor whilst you are sleeping. So again, the challenge is coming he's moving away from, yani a'mal should be given priority and a'mal should be the focus, but he's also drawing our attention of making use of the night. Now, technically, the night is as soon as Maghrib sets, then the night starts. But in reality, the night doesn't start till Isha time. Okay, that's when true night starts. So anything really after Isha time, start time, up until Suhoor time, one should try to make a habit of using some of that time in the remembrance of Allah, rather than sort of sleeping continuously all the way through. وَلَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ مَنْ قَالَ شِعْرًا. And somebody who spoke very well is the poet who put forward these 3 couplets. Okay, unfortunately, again, they're in Arabic, not in Persian. لَقَدْ حَتَفَتْ فِي جُنْحِ لَيْلٍ حَمَامَةٍ. A hamama is a small bird, most likely a dove. It has hatafat, yani it has sort of mourned, or it has let out a whimper. Fi junhi layl, in the darkness of a night. Ala fananin, upon a branch. Wahnan. Now, this wahnan could be referring to the branch, that the branch is a feeble branch, a weak branch, or it could be referring to the bird itself. وَإِنِّي لَنَائِمٌ, whilst I am asleep. Meaning again is referring to this the fact that this bird is awake. This bird is awake on perched on a very fragile position on this branch, whilst it is itself not strong and in a very strong state, yet it's still awake, whereas I'm asleep. كذبت وبيت الله, I'm a liar, I've lied. I swear by the house of Allah. لو كنت عاشقا, if I was a true lover of Allah, as I claim, لما سبقتني بالبكاء الحمائم, how could it be possible that the doves could beat me in crying? Meaning, how could they have got, why, I've fallen asleep, I claim I am the lover of Allah, I claim that I love the Sunnah, I claim that I'm a follower of Allah, I claim that I'm a follower of the Sunnah, and yet this creature, which is very weak, in this very weak position, is awake, remembering its Rabb, whilst I'm fast asleep. وَأَزْعُمُ أَنِّي هَائِمٌ ذُو سَبَابَ, and yet I'm the one who claims to be desperately in love and longing to meet Allah, لِرَبِّي سَبَابَ لِرَبِّي فَلَا أَبْكِي وَتَبْكِي الْبَهَائِمُ, whereas I do not cry, and it is the animals which cry. So, to kind of summarize this little poem, the shi'r, the poetry, this piece of poetry is basically saying that I'm a liar. I'm making a false claim. The false claim I'm making is that I am a true lover of Allah. The false claim I'm making is that I am a true follower of the Prophet ﷺ. That's a false claim. Because if it had been a true claim, then what would happen is that I would be preceding all other creatures in remembering Allah, not that some small insignificant bird perched on some insignificant branch has preceded me in remembering whilst I'm fast asleep. That's the next. So that was the 12th counsel. The 13th counsel is أيها الولد خلاصة العلم أن تعلم الطاعة والعبادة ما هي. The khulasa, the essence, the summary, the goal, the conclusion, the concise understanding of ilm is to know obedience and to know worship. That's the maqsad, is knowing what worship is and knowing what obedience is. That is why we learn. We should not be learning for any other reason than to understand what obedience to Allah is and what worshipping Allah is. That should be our goal and purpose. اعلم, know أن الطاعة والعبادة متابعة الشارع في الأوامر والنواهي بالقول والفعل. And know this, that ta'ah, obedience, and ibadah, and worship, mutaba'a, are in complete synchrony, synchronized with the shari, the lawgiver, with regards to his orders, his commands, wan nawahi, and his prohibitions, bil qawl wal fi'l, both in statement and in action, okay, in word and in deed, not indeed, but in deed. Yani, what I mean by this is kullu ma taqulu wa taf'alu wa tatruku yakunu biqtida'i shar. Everything that you say, everything that you do, everything that you leave, okay, yakunu, it should be biqtida'i shari, in obedience and following the Sharia. كما لو صمت يوم العيد وأيام التشريق تكون عاصيا. To such an extent that if you were to fast on the day of Eid, or if you were to fast on the days of Tashriq, the days of Tashriq are the 3 days which come after Eid al-Adha, تكون عاصيا, you would be a asi, yani a renegade, okay, somebody who has been disobedient. What point is Imam Ghazali making? Imam Ghazali is making on this particular issue is that your learning is for obedience and for worship. That's why you learn. But worship and obedience has to conform with the law, with the Sharia. Obedience and worship is not as you determine that to be, as you choose that to be. It must conform, it must submit to what the Sharia dictates, both in what you say and in what you do. So if a person was to fast on the day of Eid, now fasting is a virtuous act. We know that. Alhamdulillah, we're fasting 30 days of Ramadan. We know that this month, the month of fasting is a very highly regarded, if not the most highly regarded month in the year of the Islamic calendar. And so we're fasting. So you would think that if a person chose to fast, that would be a good thing, because fasting is encouraged, fasting is promoted. We have the month of Ramadan, we have the special day of Ashura, we have the 13th, 14th, 15th of every month, Ayyamul Bid. We have the Monday and Thursday of every week. Fasting is encouraged. And whenever a person wants to protect himself, he should fast. So fasting has always been encouraged. Even in kafara, we've been told to fast. Okay, and so it's something which is promoted, it's something which is pushed, it's something which is encouraged, even there to resolvers of penalties. So if a person decides to fast, one should encourage that. But if he chooses to fast on Eid day, then that becomes haram for him. That becomes haram. So even though fasting, as I've just outlaid here, is a good act, it is something which is promoted, it's something which is driven, it's something which is encouraged, but to do it in a way that's not pleasing to Allah becomes haram, even though it is one of the greatest acts of submission. So it is just by the fasting associated on a day in which Allah has forbidden you to fast, it becomes haram, even though it's a virtuous act. Similarly, fasting on the days of Tashriq, the 3 days which come after Eid al-Adha, it is haram. So even though fasting, again, we've said, is a highly meritorious act, it's a highly virtuous act, it's a highly religious act which brings about great reward for the person who does it. However, do it in a manner which is not what Allah has permitted, it becomes haram. So fasting on Ayyam al-Tashriq is haram. Furthermore, أو صليت في ثوب مغصوب, or if he prayed in clothes which he had not necessarily stolen, because stealing has a definition, was something in which he had taken openly. Okay, something which he had taken openly. Okay, because maghzub, ghasab, is when you snatch something, meaning you take it in the presence of the person who owns it. Stealing is when you take something which is concealed, which is under some kind of protection, and you go inside and nobody's there and you sneak around and you take it. That's stealing in the Shari definition. However, this is referred to as ghasab, in which it is taken. So we can, in the English translation, I can give you snatching. Or taxing, the street language is saying, oh, he taxed my coat, he taxed my shoes. Unfortunately, we see that in London and in other busy cities where a person can walk up to another person and just take his coat off him, saying, take your coat off, either with a knife or something, and he takes his coat and he takes it. That doesn't come under the definition of stealing in the Sharia, that comes under the definition of ghasab. So, or if he was to pray in clothes that he had snatched, okay, that's the best way I can describe it. Even though it takes the form of worship, because he's praying salah. It is Maghrib time, okay? It is Maghrib time, so he's praying salah at Maghrib time. So he goes to pray salah at Maghrib time. It is Maghrib time. He is in a state of wudu. He's facing Qibla. It is fard. He's got everything. The only issue is that he's praying in clothes that he did ghasab of, that he snatched off somebody. Now, one would think that act of worship should be done. Okay, he should not sin, because the stealing is a separate, or the ghasab is a separate sin, and the salah is a separate act. So surely if he prays salah, he should get his reward for that salah. He doesn't, because Allah does not permit a person to pray in clothes which he has usurped, which he has snatched. Okay, so he will still be sinful. So what he's saying in a nutshell is that acts of worship and acts of obedience aren't just what you assume them to be, or you just in your own head come to a conclusion that I believe this is an act of worship or this is an act of obedience. Okay, it has to come under the submission, it has to come under the regulation of the Sharia. It has to. And therefore, knowledge is obviously essential for the amal, that one seeks knowledge first. Once they have knowledge, then based on that knowledge, they can perform those acts. But if we remember many of the earlier counsels, knowledge in and of itself is not sufficient for a person to reach a stage by which he is absolved and he is complete. Rather, knowledge is only a means to act. That's its purpose. Like we said at the outset, khulasatul ilm an ta'lama ta'a wal ibada mahi. Okay, the khulasa, the essence, the conclusion, the goal, the objective of knowledge is that you know obedience and worship what it is. And that's where we'll stop, inshallah. As you know, we have a new time of 7:20. We will carry on with this new time of 7:20 for this week before we enter week 4. Okay, and we will enter week 4, inshallah, next week, which will be our final week of Ramadan. We're already on the last 2 weeks, as I said. We've gone past halfway. Tonight is the 18th night of Ramadan. So, make use of it. Otherwise, this Ramadan will have gone. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.